The auction of shame. The marketplace was loud, filled with strange music and shouting aliens. It was not a place for kind hearts. Lights flashed from every corner, and the smell of burned meat and oil filled the air. But the biggest crowd stood, in front of a raised metal stage, the place where the auctions happened. Riven, a young human traveler, had come to the station to buy ship parts. He didn't expect to find horror, but now he stood frozen as a cage was rolled onto the stage. Inside it was a girl. No, not a girl, but a young alien woman. She was small and thin, her silver skin covered in bruises. Her dark hair was messy, and her arms were chained behind her back. The auctioneer, a fat, slimy alien with blinking yellow eyes, shouted, "Next item, a broken one, but maybe you can still enjoy her." The crowd laughed. Some aliens made rude comments. One threw a piece of food at her. She didn't move. Riven's fists clenched. The girl looked around slowly. Her eyes were wide, tired and scared. She didn't fight. She didn't speak. She simply waited, like someone who had already given up. "Starting at 5 credits, the auctioneer shouted. Nobody raised a hand. "She's too quiet." Someone laughed. "She looks dead already," another alien said. The auctioneer growled. "Fine, 3 credits. Anyone?" Still, no one moved. The crowd was losing interest. Riven looked into the girl's eyes. Just for a second. She looked at him. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. But something inside him changed. He stepped forward. 5 credits, he said loudly. The crowd turned to stare. The auctioneer blinked in surprise. 5? Are you serious, human? Yes, Riven said, pulling the credits from his pocket. I'll take her. The auctioneer laughed. She's yours. No returns. As the crowd laughed again, Riven stepped onto the stage. The guards unlocked her chains. She fell into his arms, light as a feather, cold as ice. He looked down at her. Her skin was covered in cuts. Her lips were dry. She didn't say anything. She didn't resist. She just leaned against him like a doll. He carried her away. Back in his small living quarters, Riven laid her gently on the bed. She didn't move. She looked at the ceiling, silent. He cleaned her wounds with water and wrapped her arms in bandages. She flinched when he touched her, but didn't pull away. "What's your name?" Riven asked softly. No answer. He brought her food, warm broth in a metal cup. She didn't reach for it, so he waited. After a long while, she slowly turned her head, sniffed the bowl, and took a small sip. Just one. But it was something. "You're safe now," Riven said. "No one will hurt you." Still no answer. Riven sighed and sat nearby. He had no idea what he was doing. Why had he done this? Why had he spent money on a broken stranger? He wasn't a hero. He just couldn't walk away. As the room grew quiet, he looked at her again. Her eyes were now closed, her body wrapped in a blanket. She looked more like a scared child than a warrior or slave. He whispered, "I'll call you Luma, just until you tell me your real name." She didn't react. Riven leaned back and closed his eyes. Outside, the station was still noisy, but in this little room, a strange peace began to grow. That night, as he watched over her, Riven made a silent promise. He would not treat her like a thing. He would not let her be hurt again. She had been given to him as entertainment, but instead, he would heal her, even if it cost him everything. Luma hadn't spoken a word since the auction. She sat curled in a corner of Riven's small room, wrapped in a blanket like a ghost hiding from the world. Her eyes followed him everywhere, but her lips stayed closed. She moved only when she had to, slow, careful, like every step might bring pain. Riven didn't push her. He talked to her gently, telling her stories about Earth, his travels, his ship. He even tried to make her laugh by showing her how he nearly got arrested once for calling a Grullian guard a walking cabbage. Still, silence. But those eyes, they were always awake, always watching. One morning, Riven brought in a bowl of warm food again. Not the standard protein blocks most station people ate, no. Today he made something better. He mixed in real broth and soft bread from Earth supplies he had saved. He didn't know her species' diet, but he hoped it would be gentle on her stomach. He placed the bowl near her and stepped back. She didn't move. He didn't speak. He just sat across the room, fixing the broken scanner on his desk, pretending not to notice her. Minutes passed, and then, softly, slowly, her fingers reached out. She pulled the bowl close. With trembling hands, she dipped a piece of bread into the broth and tasted it. She didn't look up, but she ate. Quietly, carefully. Riven smiled to himself. Later that day, Riven noticed something strange. While he worked on repairs, a low humming sound filled the room. It wasn't a machine. It was coming from Luma. She was humming, barely, like a whisper, but it was music, a memory, a song from her home. He didn't ask. He just listened. But in that sound, he heard pain and something else, hope. That night, a power fluctuation shook the station. The lights flickered and alarms buzzed for a second. Riven turned to check the controls, but then he heard a sharp sound behind him. He spun around. Luma was crouched in the corner, her hands over her ears, her eyes wide in terror. She was shaking, breathing hard like an animal trapped in a cage again. Hey. Riven knelt beside her. It's okay, it's just the station. It happens sometimes. But she didn't hear him. Her eyes were locked on something only she could see. Memories of screams, chains, maybe worse. Without thinking, Riven reached out slowly and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. She flinched, but didn't pull away. Her breathing slowed, just a little. I won't hurt you, he whispered. No one will, not while I'm here. Her eyes finally looked into his. There was no voice, no words. But in those glowing eyes was a question. Why? Why was this human being kind? Why hadn't he used her like the others? Why did he treat her like she mattered? Riven didn't know how to answer, so he didn't. He just stayed by her side until she stopped shaking. And in that moment, something changed. She didn't speak. But her eyes, they begged, not for food, not for escape, for something deeper, for safety, for trust, for a reason to believe again. The next morning, Riven awoke to a sound he hadn't heard before. The door of the washroom clicked shut. He sat up fast, worried, but then it opened again. Luma stepped out, wrapped in a fresh towel. She had washed herself. She looked different now. Still thin, still tired, but there was life in her walk. She didn't sit in the corner anymore. She sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time, she looked at Riven without fear. That evening, Riven gave her a soft shirt to wear. It was far too big for her, but she held it like a gift. As he turned to leave her alone to change, he heard a soft voice behind him. Just one word. Thank. He froze. He turned around slowly. Her lips had barely moved, but the sound was real. She had tried to say thank you. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect, but it was her voice. And Riven felt something deep in his chest, something like fire and sadness and hope all mixed together. He smiled. You're welcome, Luma. Luma had started to heal. She now walked around Riven's small room slowly, touching things with wonder. The light switch, the tiny fridge, even the mirror. She still didn't speak much, but her silence wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful, curious, alive. Riven noticed how she looked at the stars outside the window. She would sit there sometimes for hours just staring. Was she remembering her home, Her family? Or the people who hurt her? He didn't ask. He didn't want to open the wounds too fast. But one evening, everything changed. Luma was sleeping, curled on the bed under a clean blanket. Riven worked on a repair job nearby. The room was quiet except for the sound of soft breathing and tiny clicks from his toolkit. Then she stirred. She let out a small whimper and turned in her sleep. Her shirt lifted slightly, just below her neck. That's when Riven saw it. His eyes, narrowed, burned into the back of her neck, half covered by hair, was a dark, ugly mark. It wasn't a tattoo. It was a brand, a scar from a hot iron. The shape was strange, but he recognized the symbol. His hands froze. It was the mark of the Veltrax pit rings, an illegal gladiator circuit where aliens were forced to fight each other to the death for gambling and fun. He'd heard rumors about it. Underground arenas, bloody battles, no rules, no mercy. He looked at Luma's peaceful face, and suddenly he saw her differently. The silent stares, the fear of loud noises, the flinching, the scars. She wasn't just a slave. She had been a fighter, forced to battle like a wild animal in a cage. Later that night, Riven opened his datapad and searched the black market archives. Carefully, secretly. If anyone saw, he could be punished. Or, worse, he found it. Veltrax Arena, Code 87G, known for training rare species. Female fighters were preferred because the crowd liked to watch them bleed. He saw pictures, fighters in chains, crowds laughing. One blurry photo showed a silver-skinned girl with dark hair, standing over a body, fists covered in blood. Wanda, that Luma. The next morning, Riven made breakfast but couldn't stop thinking. What had they done to her? How many had she killed? Did she even know who she was anymore? As Luma sipped her broth, Riven gently asked, "Luma, this mark on your neck, do you remember it?" She froze. Her hand dropped the spoon. The metal clinked on the table. Her body stiffened. Her eyes didn't move. Then with slow, shaking fingers, she touched the back of her neck. Tears filled her eyes. Not loud sobs. Not screaming. Just silent drops that rolled down her cheeks, one after the other. She nodded. Just once. Riven stood and walked around the table. He knelt beside her, speaking softly. "You're not there anymore." She looked at him. "I know what they did to you. But that place is gone. You're not a weapon. Not a thing." She didn't speak, but her hands reached forward and grabbed his arm tightly. She clung to him like a drowning person holds a rope. And in that moment, Riven knew. She wasn't broken. She was surviving. Every day she stayed alive was a fight. Every breath she took was an act of rebellion against what they tried to make her. That night he made a choice. He wasn't just going to protect her. He was going to find out who sold her, who branded her, who threw her into that pit. Because if she had been forced to fight, then someone had paid for it, and Riven would not rest until he found them. The lights were low. The station outside was quiet tonight. Inside Riven's room, Luma lay on the bed, her eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Riven sat in the chair nearby, watching over her like always. But tonight felt different. The air was heavy, like something was coming. She hadn't cried again since yesterday, but she hadn't smiled either. Her face stayed blank, calm, too calm. Riven had seen soldiers look like that before a breakdown. He stayed quiet, not wanting to disturb her. He just watched, protected. Then it happened. A strange beeping noise echoed from the corner panel, soft but sharp. Riven stood quickly. That sound wasn't normal. It wasn't coming from his system. He scanned the room with his eyes. Luma sat up fast. She wasn't looking at the panel. She was looking at her own arm. Her hand trembled as she touched a small spot under her skin, just above her elbow. Then she whispered a word, A real word. Her voice was hoarse, dry, but clear. Run. Riven blinked. What? Run, she repeated, louder this time. Then she stood wobbling. They're coming. Before he could ask, she stumbled toward him and grabbed his arm. Her fingers dug deep into his sleeve. I told you, I was property, she said. They put a tracker. Riven's blood turned cold, so that beep was a signal. Someone was tracking her, and now they knew where she was. Can you take it out? He asked. She shook her head. Too deep. I tried before. Riven didn't hesitate. He pulled out his toolkit and motioned for her to sit. This will hurt, he said. I've felt worse, she replied, voice sharp and steady. She bit down on a towel as Riven cut into her arm. The skin opened easily, too easily, thin, like it hadn't healed properly in years. He worked fast, sweat dripping down his face. His hands shook. He was no doctor, but he found it. A black, pebble-sized chip blinking with a soft red light. He crushed it with a wrench and then everything went silent. Luma fell back, pale and shaking. Riven wrapped her arm and gave her water. She didn't speak for a long time. She just breathed, deeply, like she'd been drowning for years and now had finally come up for air. Then, for the first time, she looked at him with something new in her eyes, trust. She spoke again that night. Not much, but enough. I was taken when I was little, she said quietly. Traded between masters, they trained me to fight, made me kill Aenir die. Riven listened. He didn't interrupt. They said I was good at it, pretty, fast. So they branded me, sold me to the pit rings. She paused. I fought for years. Then I lost. Badly. They tossed me aside, said I was too damaged. That's when they sold me. To the auction. She looked down. I didn't expect to live. Riven's throat was tight. You are living now, and no one will hurt you again. Luma raised her eyes. You bought me, she said. I freed you. She stared at him for a long time, then she whispered. Why? Riven gave a small smile. Because you didn't deserve any of it. Luma's hand reached out hesitantly. She touched his. It was the first time she'd done it without fear, and Riven knew. Something inside her was waking up. Something that had been locked away behind pain, silence, and blood. She slept peacefully that night. No nightmares, no whimpers. Riven didn't sleep at all. He sat beside her and stared at the crushed tracker chip on the table. If someone had followed it, then trouble was already on the way. The next morning, the entire station felt different. Luma was quiet, but not because of fear this time. She had a strange focus in her eyes, like someone preparing for war. Riven noticed her checking exits, watching shadows move under doors, listening to every sound. He had seen this look before. On soldiers, on survivors. Something was coming, and she could feel it. Riven stepped into the nearest trade cafe to grab food. The place had screens on every wall, usually playing news, games, or bounty updates. He didn't expect to see her face there. Big and clear on a glowing red banner. Stolen property. 1 combat unit. Silver-skinned female. Wanted. Return dead. Or alive. Wanted for theft. 1 human male. Name unknown. Reward. 10,000 credits. Riven's blood ran cold. They had marked him too. For saving her. For choosing kindness. He ran back to the room. Slammed the door. Locked it fast. Luma didn't ask. She already knew. They found us, she said calmly. There's a bounty, Riven said. On you. On me. Everyone's going to be looking now. Luma nodded. They won't stop. You should run. Riven looked at her, hard. I'm not leaving you. Her voice was steady. Then you'll die too. I don't care. She paused. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Pain. Gratitude. She sat on the floor and tied her long dark hair into a tight braid. Then we move. Now. They packed fast. Luma moved like a soldier. She knew how to avoid cameras, which halls were blind, which guards were lazy. Riven followed her lead. As they crossed a lower deck tunnel, she stopped suddenly. "Two behind us," she whispered. "One is armed." Riven turned slowly. Two aliens in dark gear were walking fast, eyes scanning the crowd. They had bounty hunter marks on their belts. Luma grabbed Riven's hand and pulled him down a side tunnel. The station was no longer safe. They reached an old tech repair shop owned by a grumpy old mechanic named Cray. Riven had helped him once. With stolen engine cores, Cray owed him. Inside the dark shop, Riven told him everything. Cray frowned. "You saved a pit fighter, human. You got guts. But guts don't stop bullets. Can you help us?" Riven asked. Cray sighed. "I got a cloaked shuttle, slow but quiet, gets you out of this sector." Luma looked up. "Can it be tracked?" "No," Cray said. "But you'll need a distraction to escape the hangar." Luma stood. "I'll do it." Riven blinked. "What?" "I'll draw them away," she said. "They know me. They'll chase me." "No," Riven said firmly. "We stay together, always." She stared at him. "Why?" "Because I don't want to survive without you." Her eyes widened slightly. No one had ever said that to her before. Not in her whole life. Cray gave them a map and key card. "You got 10 minutes. After that, the hangar goes on lock. Get in, or you're stuck here forever." They nodded. Then Luma did something unexpected. She reached out, touched Riven's cheek gently, and said, "I'll stay with you." Simple words, but to her, they meant everything. As they left the shop, more bounty hunter squads filled the hallways. Alarms started to sound. Loudspeakers echoed. Fugitives on the run, human and silver-skinned combat slave, extreme caution. Advised. The bounty wasn't just a message anymore. Now the entire station was hunting them. But Luma was no ordinary runaway, and Riven was no ordinary man. He had a plan, and she had nothing left to lose, except the one person who finally saw her as more than a weapon. The station was burning with noise, alarms screaming, hunters chasing and flashing red lights painting the metal halls. But inside the hidden maintenance tunnel beneath the lower docking ring, it was silent. Riven and Luma crouched in the dark. Above them, dozens of boots pounded the floors. They had escaped by inches. Riven's heart pounded. But Luma? She was calm. She moved like she'd done this 100 times, because she had. They reached the service ladder that led straight to the hangar shaft. Just one more door and they'd be in sight of the escape shuttle Cray had promised. Riven typed in the access code. It beeped red. Wrong. He tried again. Beep, red again. Then, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. Voices. A flashlight beam hit the tunnel. Well, they had been found. Riven pulled Luma behind a panel. "We need to run," he whispered. "No," Luma said. "They're too close. They'll follow." She turned and looked him in the eyes. Her silver skin gleamed in the emergency lights. "I fight. You get to the ship." "No," Riven said, grabbing her arm. "We do this together." Luma's jaw tightened. "I can take them. I'm not scared." Riven looked at her, not just the fighter, but the girl who had whispered her first words to him, who had shaken in fear at a loud alarm, who had once refused to eat. She wasn't broken anymore, she was fire. "I know you can fight," he said softly, "but you don't have to be that weapon anymore." Luma stared. "What if I want to fight now to protect you?" A silence passed between them. And then, he nodded. "Then we fight." The tunnel door burst open. 3 bounty hunters stepped, and armed with shock rifles and net launchers. They weren't here to talk. "Give us the asset," one growled. "We'll let you live, human." Riven stepped forward, unarmed. Luma stepped beside him, eyes glowing, shoulders straight. "I'm not your asset," she said coldly. The lead hunter blinked. "She speaks?" Riven smirked. You have no idea what she can do. Luma moved first, like lightning. She flipped forward, kicking the lead hunter's gun out of his hand. She spun, grabbed the next one's shoulder, and slammed his head into the wall. Riven ducked as a stun bolt zipped past him. He tackled the last one low, buying Luma time to finish them off. It was over in seconds, 3 hunters down. Luma stood, above them, chest rising and falling. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from release, from reclaiming her power. Riven looked at her with awe. "You're amazing," he said. She smiled, just barely. "I didn't kill them," she said. "I wanted to, but I didn't." "That's what makes you stronger," Riven said. The access panel beeped green now. Cray must have fixed it from his end. They climbed up to the hangar. The escape shuttle waited, engines humming softly. Just a few steps more, but as they approached, another squad arrived, this time armored, organized. Not just bounty hunters, station guards, too many to fight. They surrounded the shuttle. A voice shouted, "Surrender now!" Luma grabbed Riven's hand. "We're out of options." Riven's mind raced. "Then we give them a reason to back off." Turned and stepped forward, shouting, "You're protecting slavers and murderers. She was a victim, and you know it." The guards hesitated. Whispers spread. Luma stepped beside him. "I was forced to kill for their games. I'm not their fighter. Anymore, I am free." The crowd behind the guards began to grow. Civilians, workers, merchants. They started murmuring, watching, and one of them shouted, "Let them go." Another joined. "She's not the criminal. They are." The guards looked around. Pressure built. Riven raised his voice. "If you stop us now, you're helping the ones who made her bleed." The head guard lowered his weapon slowly, then turned his back. "We didn't see anything," he said. Riven and Luma ran to the shuttle. The doors closed behind them. As the engines roared and the stars opened before them, Luma leaned back in her seat, eyes wide. She was free. Truly free. And it wasn't because she had fought. It was because someone had stood beside her. The stars stretched across the black sky like silver fire. Riven sat quietly in the pilot seat of the stolen shuttle. Luma was beside him, wrapped in a thick gray blanket. She didn't look afraid anymore. She didn't look broken either. She looked like someone still learning what peace felt like. But peace didn't last, not for people like them. Not yet. They had escaped the station. But Veltrax Arena didn't forget. The bounty wasn't canceled. It was doubled. Luma was no longer just a runaway pit fighter. She had become a symbol. A symbol that a weapon could become a woman again, and that terrified the people who made money from pain. The shuttle beeped as it exited hyperspace. They had reached a forgotten moon near the outer rim, cold, quiet, and hidden. Cray had said it was safe for now. They landed near an old mining shelter buried in snow. Inside, it was dusty and dark, but it had heat, and walls, and silence. Riven and Luma, it felt like a palace. The first few days were slow. Riven fixed the old generator. Luma helped gather supplies from the shuttle. They ate together, talked more. She even laughed once, soft and awkward, like it surprised her too. Sometimes she still had nightmares. Sometimes Riven would wake up and find her standing outside, under the stars, not afraid, just searching. "Do you miss it?" he asked one night. "Fighting?" she asked. He nodded. She shook her head. "No, I miss knowing who I was." "You're Luma now," he said gently. She smiled. "You gave me that name. I can give you a new one if you want." She looked at him with those deep, glowing eyes. "No, Luma is good. It means light, right?" He smiled. "Yeah, it means light." Days passed, then weeks, and for a short time, it seemed like they could build a life here. But Luma knew better. She could feel it in the air, in her bones. They were being hunted again. It started with a strange sound on the comms unit, static mixed with sharp tones. A tracking ping, military grade. Then a black ship was seen in the sky, fast, silent, moving too clean to be a cargo vessel. Luma didn't wait. She packed a small bag, took only what she needed, and looked Riven in the eye. "I'll lead them. Away." "No," Riven said. "They want me. And I want you," he answered. "So we stay together. But you'll die. Then I die fighting beside the only person I've ever truly cared about." Luma didn't speak for a moment, then she whispered, "You're not like anyone I've ever met." I could say the same. That night the attackers came, a strike team of 6 armed bounty hunters, not local ones, real professionals. They landed with cloaked gear and heat-seeking scopes, but they underestimated 2 things: Luma's will and Riven's heart. The first 2 hunters didn't even make it through the trees. Luma used her bare hands in the snow to trap them, disarm them, and leave them unconscious. She was not fighting for a crowd this time. She was fighting for home. Riven wasn't a soldier, but he knew how to build traps, shock wires, flash mines, and with Luma buying time, he set up everyone with precision. The 3rd and 4th hunters got caught in a false radio loop and stumbled into the ice pit. The 5th one reached the shelter, only to find Riven standing with a repurposed mining drill. 1 swing, 1 scream. It was over, only one was left. He was the worst. The leader. The one who had trained Luma in the pits years ago. She saw him and froze. He was taller now, grayer, but the eyes were the same. He smiled cruelly. "I knew you'd survive. You're too valuable." "I'm not yours," she said, voice shaking. "You think he saved you?" He sneered, pointing at Riven. "He bought you just like the rest." Luma stepped forward. "No," she said. "He didn't buy me. He saw me." And then she attacked. The battle wasn't easy. This man had trained to kill, and he had no rules. But Luma was fighting for herself now. For her voice, for her name, for her future. And when she stood over his beaten body in the snow, breathing hard, she didn't strike the final blow. She turned her back, because she was done being what they made her. Riven rushed to her side. Her face was bloody, her lips split, but she was smiling, not from victory, from freedom. "I didn't kill him," she said softly. "You didn't need to," Riven said. "You already won." They buried the attackers in the snow, and for the first time since the auction, there was no bounty, no hunter, no chains, just 2 people, on a frozen moon, looking at the stars. Weeks later, a small ship arrived. Cray had sent a contact, someone to bring them somewhere new, somewhere with clean names and quiet futures. But Luma shook her head. "This is home now," she said. Riven nodded. "Then I stay too." One evening, as they watched the sky together, Luma whispered, "Do you still see me as broken?" Riven took her hand. "No. I see you as someone stronger than anyone I've ever known." She smiled. "Even stronger than you?" He laughed. "Much stronger." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and in the cold quiet of the galaxy, 2 survivors sat together, not as master and slave, not as fighter and buyer, but as 2 souls who refused to give up on each other and built something beautiful from the pieces.